Hello, everyone, and welcome to another discussion of Vinland Saga. In this case, today we are talking about Book 8 of Vinland Saga. So I'm very excited to have here as my discussion partner, the one and only Merphy Napier. Hello, Merphy.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's been such a great journey so far, this series, and now we're on arc 3. This
Yes.
is the beginning of arc 3, and I'm really excited. There are some new things happening and some carryovers from the previous arcs. There's
hmm
lots of good stuff to discuss, but I thought maybe we could start with the cover
hmm
because, as is often the case with Yukimura's books, with his manga, he does a lot here,
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
so there's a lot of elements here that I think are going to be relevant to the themes and the story that we're about to delve into. So what do you think about this cover? What sticks out to you? What seems
Yeah.
important to you in
So
this illustration?
we obviously get to meet Girded in
Yeah.
this volume, which I loved. In our last discussion, you were like, I wonder when we'll meet Girded because she was in the original Vinland Saga, so I know her future. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we finally met her, and continuing on with the themes of chains and escaping those chains,
Yeah.
freedom, her ambition to set sail to sea. It's really all kind of wrapped up here in this one image. Really, really strong symbolism here.
Yeah, yeah, in a big way. And of course, Yukimura links her very explicitly with the turn in the book. And here they
hmm
are, she's almost, even though this doesn't actually happen in the book,
No.
but she is linked thematically with this turn. It's a symbol of
hmm
not just Gudrid, but also I think of the role that she is being forced into and her yearning for something different, which is the
Yeah.
big theme I think that is introduced in this arc,
Yes.
in a way that we haven't seen previously. The gender roles that are
hmm
prescribed for women, particularly. This is something that Yukimura is definitely, I feel like, delving into here.
That's true. I think he really, in general, this entire arc, he spends a lot of time on men as well, as far as
Oh
like
yeah,
a warrior's destiny is to avenge his fallen comrades and all that. But he does a great job of talking about roles, what is expected of someone, of a woman, of a warrior, of a Viking, and so many others, people in leadership, what's expected of you.
yeah,
And he does a great job of illustrating the pressure of that, and when that you don't fit with that role. He does a great job of honoring people who do fit with those traditional roles, and
yeah,
saying like this is valuable when it works, and when it doesn't, finding your freedom is also valuable. He does a good job of exploring gender, as you said, as well, with Hild, being the embodiment of certain things. We won't go
yeah.
too deep into all that prematurely, but I think, yeah, roles for men and women, for marriage aspects, for leadership aspects, so many different aspects that he explores in this particular arc.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, that you're absolutely right about all that. And some of the carryover themes you've already mentioned, masculinity and
hmm
roles for men, but also there's vengeance, which is wrapped up in that as well,
hmm
isn't it?
hmm
Non-violence versus violence. There's something we're very much
Yeah.
dealing with in this arc too, and the legacy of the past, Thorfinn's past, particularly catching up with him
Yeah.
and as he's trying to embody this new ideal of nonviolence.
hmm
But the violence of his past is still there. It has a grip on him, and it has a very important manifestation in this arc.
Oh
Particularly,
yeah.
even at the end, we see it really at the end of this book with the
hmm
introduction of Hild. So you've got even the relationship along with the gender roles, the relationship with the natural world, with animals, and there's some interesting moments with various animals in here. There's a
Yes.
bear, there's a dog. We mentioned the tern already. I love
hmm
what Yukimura does with the
Oh
animals
yeah.
here. Yeah,
Oh
aren't they
yeah.
great? Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And I love that he, especially with the doggo, really honors the roles
Yeah.
that they play as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and slavery is carried over, and I think he makes some interesting links between the slavery that he was exploring in Arc 2 and
Mm,
the roles of women in this
mhm,
society in this time and place. And they're very much like slaves in a way. And
mhm.
so that those chains are very appropriate, I think, as a metaphor, and that is carried over inside the book as well.
Yeah, in a very physical way. As
Yeah.
soon as we come back to what's his name?
Sigmund, yeah, and his father
Sigmund
was Halfdan,
and
I think.
Halfdan.
Yeah,
Yes, when we
yeah,
return to Halfdan, who we met in the first arc, never
yeah,
thought I'd see him again.
yeah,
And yeah, their mantra is chains.
yeah,
Their whole way of life is chains, which is a great. He does a good job of having the internal conflicts and the physical conflicts match.
yeah, absolutely. That is a great way to say it. That they're all about chains and the rules of society. He is
Hmm.
somebody who regards himself as virtuous because he very meticulously obeys the rules, right?
Hmm.
I'm talking about Halfdan, the father, and another interesting father-son relationship going
Oh
on.
yeah.
We've seen this in the previous arcs as well.
Hmm.
Son is trying to live up to these very rigid ideals that the father embodies, and with
Yeah.
chains and everything, in a literal way and in a metaphorical way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too deep into the story, you wanted to talk about the script on the cover, did you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You mean this
Uh-huh.
the runes
Yes.
and
So
such?
yes, yes. But I'm
Oh,
sorry, did I misunderstand you? I thought you had mentioned you
no, I
don't
mean
have
we
to.
did. No, no, not at all. I mean, we have talked about this before, and I think they're the same. It's the same on every single one, which is
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So it's basically introducing the saga as a whole, I guess, and
Gotcha. Well, then we can get into the story. Sorry.
yeah, let's do it. So the fettered turn is where it starts out, right?
Hmm.
And we mentioned in that first part already, I think this father son here, and they are very much as they're contemplating this turn, right, which is somehow stranded, and that is very much linked to our introduction to Gudrid, who
Yeah.
is becoming a forced bride essentially, and
Yes.
there's a little bit of an echo from the sagas, right? From
Mm.
you read the saga of the
Yes.
Greenlanders and saga of Eric the Red, where Gudrid is sort of handed off, I guess,
Sure.
from
Sure.
one
That's
male
how
to
marriage
another.
was arranged. Yeah.
Yep, yep. But this is Yukimura has taken that and run with it in a sense, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's given her a much more youthful, I guess, role here, and she is portrayed as essentially a rebel, right? She doesn't want to be forced into a marriage. She doesn't
Hmm.
want to be forced into any marriage, particularly. She wants to see the world, right?
Yes.
She wants to see the world that that not Eric, sorry, Leif
Life. Yeah.
introduced to her when she was a kid. So,
Yes.
and there's a very effective use of these flashbacks, isn't there? When we first see her, she's a little girl with a teddy bear.
Oh, I love her. I loved her from her introduction as a child and then seeing her as an adult. I find her very relatable personally.
Uh-huh.
I know that ambition for adventure and exploring the world and just having high ambitions for your life, having a big desire for things and being told many, many times, tone it down a little. Like that's not really your role.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, she suffered it far more than I ever did because of the time that she lived in. But I do find her to be a very, very relatable character for someone with high ambition and with a great need for adventure. Most of my interests oftentimes fall in categories that are more male dominated,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
adult fantasy is a great example of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, not feeling a bit like a foreigner in your own space is
Yeah.
something that I can relate to as well. I don't know. I think she's wonderful.
Oh, I agree with you. She is wonderful, and here she is with her. Of course, there were probably no teddy bears back in the
Right.
day, but we'll go with that because it does a great job of making her kind of cute too
Yes.
there as a kid, but also emphasizing, I think, her rebelliousness. And we see her at first, she's in this sack because she's a stowaway on the ship. She's not supposed to be there.
Mhm.
And she gets scolded a bit and discovered and all of that. And then Yukimura does his thing and he links this flashback to the present where instead of a sack, she's hiding in a barrel.
Mhm.
Right? When she's peeking out of the barrel the same way she was peeking out of the sack. So in other words, she hasn't changed much. She has this sense of
Right.
adventure. She wants to see the world. And in this case, though, she's running away from being forced into this marriage with Sigmund, isn't she?
Yes. And as a child, she was told, yeah, you'll get your adventure eventually down the road. And then as an adult, it's kind of sealing her fate of
Yeah.
that adventure will never come for you because you're expected to fulfill this role instead. You should have grown out of it by now.
Yeah.
Which I also relate. Did not grow out of a lot of things that where I was supposed to have grown out of.
Yeah,
And
good for you.
and I loved this moment for her too, when she's like,
Yes, that's exactly where I am.
oh,
Yep.
it's so beautiful of her. She really launched herself into, I don't care. I want to forsake this and I want the life that I feel like I'm designed for.
Yeah, beautifully said. That is such a pivotal moment because this is her rejection of by cutting the braid, which is of course very much associated with the female
feminine,
the feminine prescribed gender roles. So she's rejecting all of that and saying, no, this is not what I want to be. And here, and she just does it, which is, that's a key moment for her. And then of course, shortly after, we get this thing again, the chains and the guy who's coming to, not because he loves her, there's no question that Sigmund,
oh sure,
it's all about his honor. It's all about, which is what he's learned from his father. He has learned that honor is the most important thing.
Yes, and I think for him as well, for Siggy,
Siggy.
it's largely about roles for him as well. He just has a very aggressive, and you said dominant is a great word for it, way of trying to meet those expectations. But for him as well, it's what his father expects of him. It's what is expected of him as the man who will inherit, this legacy, and him just trying to control the situation so that he can fit into the role that's been prescribed to him.
Yeah, reminds me of someone from the previous arc, from the slave arc, a young fellow who was trying to live up, in this case, to his older brother's ideals more, but still kind of a father figure.
Yeah,
he turned out okay though.
He did. He did. So proud of his arc.
I'm a little more worried about Sigmund or Siggy.
Yeah, Siggy's an interesting one. And I love his relationship with his crew too, trying to assert that dominance, trying to say, I am the leader of this clan. You obey me. You're my servants. And they're just like, no, we just like you. We follow you because we want to, and
they're very chummy.
Yeah, very chummy. That kind of dynamic of a very physical kind of show of that him trying so hard to fulfill the role, but it doesn't match him. It doesn't suit him so well.
Yeah. And another part of this family's dynamic, which I think is really important, and Yukimura surprised me a little bit, is the mother, where she's saying, you need to listen to me. I know things you don't know. And he's very dismissive of women's, he trivializes everything about what his wife is trying to tell him. She's the wise one, of course. She's the one who actually sees what's going on. And she sees, good grief, what is a man good for? Nothing if he won't take a woman's good advice, right? And that's her take on it. And she's so right. And you have the introduction of the Hnefatafel, the kind of Viking chess, which kind of plays a symbolic role here too, because Halfdan thinks he can manipulate people, especially women, but his son and Gudrid and others, they're just pieces in a game to him.
Exactly. Well, people as well, we see him with a farmer who owed him money or who owed him assets. And, just in general, he views people as chess pieces to be moved and to be, that he could be the king, that he could be the one that is left standing.
It's
And
interesting.
that's
Yeah, that's Harold. The basically now he's his serf because he had taken money and he can't pay it back.
uh-huh. Hmm.
And that you're exactly right. This is how he treats people. And it's also interesting how the system protects people like Halfdan. It actually
Right.
enables them. So things are skewed in their favor.
Hmm.
And we can see that in what happens to poor Harold here, who,
Hmm.
who loses his farm, and he's accepted by the others who had been in a
Hmm.
similar situation before, but kind
Yep,
of sad fate.
absolutely. And we get to see it too, kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit when he tries to also treat Thorfinn as a chess piece and,
Exactly.
assert that dominance, do what he knows. But Thorfinn has been humbled to the point that it doesn't work the way he expected, which I thought was a really fascinating scene. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah, well, we can go there. I think it's really cool. Actually, a couple interesting things happen there. One is that Thorfinn frees the turn.
Yes.
And that, of course, has a lot of symbolic resonance
Oh,
since we
yes.
already discussed how the turn is linked to Gudrid.
Hmm.
And so keep that in mind, folks, because that'll have some resonance later on. But that moment, you're so right, when he demands, or he says, all right, if you want the deal, I'll give it to you, but you have to kiss my boot.
Yes.
And at first, Thorfinn's reaction was a bit of, you could see a little anger, I think, in his eyes. Then he's like, really? Oh, okay, fine,
Hmm.
and you're so right. He's come to a place where, and it's here. His initial reaction is a little bit like, all right, a little bit proud, but then he realized, well, hang on a sec. Okay, that's all you want. Okay,
This is
great.
actually, yeah, best case scenario. If that's all you expect of me.
Yeah. Which takes, as you said, Halfdan is taken aback
Hmm.
because that's not the reaction he expected. But it's like Thorfinn has learned about the shallowness and the fragility of pride.
Absolutely. Well put. Well put. And the fact that his goal of helping people is so much more important to him
Yeah.
than any sort of stature, that he would happily humble himself if it means that he can help others.
Yep.
And even when Halfdan takes it back and he's like, I was just joking. And then Thorfinn's reaction of, oh, of course it couldn't have been that easy. When it truly was, it was going to be
Yeah.
that easy if Halfdan would have followed up on it. But yeah, I think that scene really illustrates a lot of how far Thorfinn really has come.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that is woven throughout, but even earlier in the story when he's talking to his family, he wants to build a land of peace,
Yeah.
in Vinland, and that's the emphasis. And it's interesting how it gets linked to Gudrid's dream as well, which was, there's another flashback
Yeah.
where Leif shows her the world, right?
Yes.
And this is born and within her, this desire. It's interesting. I think how Yukimura weds these two things, her desire for seeing the world, but I think it's also a world where she's free.
Yeah.
And Thorfinn's desire to found a place where people can be free and be themselves and not be slaves, not be chained, whether literally or metaphorically.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really liked that with Thorfinn, he's really had his internal arc. Not to say that there's no more to it, but he's had the majority of that arc. And so now we're exploring freedom in another character that he gets to assist.
Yeah. And at first it looks like she's not going to be able to go there. She's going to be married off, and they're celebrating once they get the narwhal tusks, they get this plan. We're going to go to Greece, to Miklagard, which is Constantinople, and or Istanbul as it's called now. And then here she is just watching them. They're all happy, and there she is in the shadows. And you realize, oh my goodness, that's her. They're talking about her dream right there.
Yeah.
And it's just out of her reach. And it's a painful moment.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. And the fact that she kind of accepts her fate at this point, where she just says, she walks away from it. She doesn't fight them anymore. She doesn't beg anymore. We had that scene.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that beautiful spirit has been crushed.
It has been. Yeah. She's accepted that she doesn't get freedom in her life. And so she's accepted her lot in life, and that's all that it is. And we had that beautiful scene when they were loading up and she was trying to prove that she was strong enough. She could do it.
She lifts the rope. Yeah.
And she says, if I were a man, would you let me on board? And Leif admits, yes. And she goes, okay, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to know. And then she leaves. And it's just, she does something to me. She's an incredible character.
Yeah, she's so full of life.
Here's the scene.
Yes, yeah, yeah. She's wonderful. She's so full of life and spunky and fun, and yet
Mm-hmm.
and that probably makes it all the more painful when she is forced into this life that she doesn't want. It crushes
Yeah.
her spirit.
Yeah, that hopelessness of I don't get a choice. I don't get my dream. Have fun pursuing yours, I guess. You know, it's beautifully written.
Yeah. And then we see her at her wedding where she's wearing that ridiculous blonde wig, which is again, it's a neat way of saying she's pretending to be something she's not.
Yes, you're right. I didn't really make that connection, but you're absolutely right. Her putting on another personality in order to fit the role that she must. And I love on that image that you have right there that it's so gloomy. You know, the skies are gray. Honestly, to me, this what's that called? Like a huppah or something? The archway that you get married under?
I'm actually not sure. I'd have to look it up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that thing. It to me, truthfully, a noose could be hanging from that. Like it's so
it looks like
ominous.
a gallows. Yeah.
It does. It looks like she's being led to her death, not to what is supposed to be a celebration.
Well, and there are chains.
Oh yeah.
Chains.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you know. Yeah. So,
yep.
Yeah, it's a statement about the institution of marriage, I guess.
No. No, just this type of marriage.
Yes, yeah, of course, back then, right? Yes.
Yeah. I do love though that she cannot fight her fate. She cannot make herself, even if she tried, she was gonna do it. She's gonna be a wife, but it's just something inside of her.
Isn't in her. It isn't in her.
It isn't in her.
She doesn't even realize she stabs Sigmund until it's already happened. She's like, "Oh, what? I did that. Oops."
That's so funny. Poor Siggy.
Yeah, poor Siggy. I mean, he's a victim of the stupid roles he's trying to be into, and of course, it's a horrible scene too because he does hit her. And
that's true. You're right.
The dumb wig falls off.
Yeah.
And then I think that wig falling off too is a wake up call for her, and just like, okay, I'm out of here. She runs, and good for her.
Yep. Well, it's the physical again representing, you know, the internal. She couldn't put on this facade, and then the wig comes off, and then she runs into fighting for her future again.
Yep. And so the little Hnefatafel piece runs away.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
His symbolism is so strong.
Yep. It is so good. And he doesn't forget stuff, you know. Gesundheit. He doesn't forget stuff. He follows through with these symbols, and he gives them such resonance in the process. So yeah, that's an important pivotal moment in her character arc, is that resolution. Yeah, to just get out of there. Yeah.
And then we get to see her in a barrel again. Love that for her.
And of course, Thorfinn's the one that keeps recognizing that something's fishy about that barrel, right?
Yep, and he's also the one that recognizes. Gosh, he's also the one that recognizes.
It's the same page I'm on. Yeah.
Oh, it's so strong. It's such a strong scene, and him realizing, seeing in her what has happened in him. You know, the need to escape the fate thrust on you, and to find your own freedom within your circumstances, which obviously their circumstances look differently. Thorfinn thrust himself into this fate, but you know, trying to escape the chains around him. And he has been able to find that freedom, and he wants to give it to her too. So he's the one that finally says, yeah, you can travel with us.
Yeah, so well said. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you finished there?
Yep, I was done. I just said it was beautiful.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. And you have her, why can't I choose a life for myself? And if Thorfinn had never been a slave, I don't think he would have felt that empathy, that compassion, where he answers, you can, you know, he says it, he says, you can. And it's because of Arc 2 and what he learned there with Einar and everything that happened to him, that his emotions leap out there, and he's, yes, you can. And this is a different type of slavery that she's being forced into, but it is just as awful as what he had suffered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And then we get to see, is it her mother that
It's her sister-in-law.
sister?
Sister-in-law,
Okay.
I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that finally recognizes
Yeah.
the value in her own choice for her destiny and supports
Yes.
her, which I thought was also a really nice cap to it.
Yeah, totally agree. I wrote down that page too, where I think it's Tula is what he
Oh,
named
okay.
her. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she recognizes this poor young woman is never gonna fit into what we're trying to squeeze her into. Let's let her go. Because she almost, after Thorfinn's invitation, almost gives up again. And if it weren't for her intervening at that moment, she would have probably.
Yeah, well, even in her freedom, as she's sailing away, she's still weeping and feeling like a complete failure. Like, I wasn't able to be the type of woman that I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to her sister-in-law. Yeah.
I'm sorry that I wasn't better behaved. Just, I couldn't fulfill the role that I was supposed, like, what's broken about me, that I can't be who I'm supposed to be.
Yep, absolutely. And that's an interesting page too, because you have everybody's emotional state at that moment, just really encapsulated here pretty well. You have the resolution between the two friends, and you have some anxiety here because, of course, they're going to be chased. And then you have her state of mind, which is she hasn't quite embraced her freedom yet.
Very vulnerable.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got Sigmund trying to live up to that masculine ideal there.
Well, yeah, he's ready to get his bride back. He's been shamed and humiliated.
Yeah.
Got to resolve this issue now.
Yep. And the re-emphasis of Halfdan's view of women as chess pieces or Hanafatafel pieces is brought home again to us just a little bit after that. Where, of course, and then her defiance again, right? His wife's defiance. I'm not sure if she gets a name in there. I don't remember it if she does, and I'm sorry if she does get a name and I'm just missing it. But I love her role here. She's got a minor part, but it's so key, isn't it?
Yeah. Just acknowledging that this is what happens when you try to play chess maker. Whenever you try to rule other people's lives, which I do find interesting, even though in the first arc I don't remember any strong female character.
Not really. I mean, you
I guess his mother and his sister were both quite strong, but they played minor roles. And then obviously Astrid, how do you say her name?
Oh yes. Oh gosh.
I know Astrid isn't right. Arnheid, thanks.
Yes.
She was obviously an incredible character, but even the master's wife played a strong role, a negative one, but a strong one.
Right.
And now we have this character. So he does a lot of subtlety with his female characters being strong and assertive within the roles that they're forced to be in.
Yeah.
And then this is the arc that he really breaks through those barriers, and it's just like, regardless of role, here's some strong women.
Absolutely complex, I would say, in getting Gudrid's character here, and then at the end we get Hild, and we get more of her. We're going to talk about the next book, of course. We'll get to talk about her more, but I think his most complex, fully drawn female characters are in this arc so far.
Absolutely agree. Yeah,
but I love what, and I do hope I'm just not. I hope that she hasn't given a name, that I'm just forgetting it, because I feel bad if I'm forgetting it. But I love what she says. A woman has her own free will. She simply chooses to engage the man's game most of the time. Do not forget this.
She's such a good line.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And this piece wants to go away. It doesn't want to do what you want it to do, right?
Yeah, she's teaching her husband a lesson. He's stubborn.
I don't think he's very good at listening, though.
No, he's not. He's a stubborn fool.
Yeah. So anything else here that you wanted to touch on?
No, I want to move on to what is one of my favorite scenes and favorite characters in the entire story, which is another very strong woman that we meet next up whenever we go to a village that has been slaughtered.
Yeah.
This is the introduction to our doggo, of course.
Yeah. Oh, the puppy. He's been burned in the raid, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So this village is destroyed. These people have been slaughtered, and then I reckon I can show this. I don't know. Is a nursing mother, is that allowed by YouTube?
I think that's fine. I personally think it should be anyway.
Well, in my opinion, this is one of the most incredible panels in the entire series.
I agree.
Not only does she look badass, but her role as a mother, taking on that traditional role, he pays value to that traditional role having so much honor and strength and value in and of itself. You don't have to take on that role. You don't have to. And he displays women having many strong roles in many different ways of life. But I love that he doesn't just shove that role aside in the case of female empowerment, but honors that traditionally very soft and, you know, that what's viewed to be X, Y, and Z, he takes and shows how strong it is. And
yes, the strength and the determination
that
woman must have had to protect her baby and to
be one of the only survivors. Deeply injured, badly injured, near
horribly
death, but surviving for her child, to feed her child, to nourish her child. And then the moment she passes the child off is when she allows herself to die, because that's been fulfilled. And oh man, what a powerful scene.
Yeah, so well said. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that is just, it's really something. And again, it's a minor, I mean, we don't even know her name. She doesn't really say much of anything. Just the name, you know,
just the name,
not even the full name. I think it's Thorfinn's guessing there a little bit. But Carly is introduced to us there, but wow, it's such an impactful moment. A little bit like the moment with the mother who protects Thorfinn earlier in the English village. You know, these are really great moments that Yukimura delivers.
He does.
Full of compassion.
Yeah, it's a really powerful scene. And then I love, not a one of them knows how to handle this child that's now been thrust on them.
That's made abundantly clear. They just
way over their heads. And Thorfinn's the one that steps up. He's the one that says, okay, this is what we're doing now. Let's figure it out. And you know, I love the fumbling of like, all right, Gertrude, you're a woman, so like you feed, that's gonna be fine, right? She's like, not the way that works, but okay, we'll figure it out.
I think you and I can both relate to that feeling of having to do childcare and wondering, am I doing this right? You know?
How do hospitals not send you home with an instruction manual? Truly.
They don't come with one for some reason, you know?
Oh man, their hopelessness is definitely reflective of a new parent of like, what do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. But after changing a bunch of diapers, you do get better at it. So.
Oh yeah, you figure it out. You figure out how to keep them alive.
Yeah, so it's a pivotal moment too, and it does show you again Thorfinn's determination to be a more compassionate person as well, because as you said, he is the one who's most stepping up here to say, okay, this is a fragile, vulnerable life. We have to take care of it. We have to do. And they try to find its relatives, and they're afraid of vengeance, another big theme from this series. And that's an ideal that you're supposed to live up to. You're supposed to get vengeance, and this whole feud that is the backdrop to Carly's family's demise is an illustration of the destructiveness of this ideal. Right?
Yep. And I have that pulled up here, where he says, because it's not just the honor of the people involved that matter. They're killing for the sake of peace. What happens to the world if murder comes with no consequences? A murderer will always be met with vengeance. If that rule is upheld with strict vigilance, everyone thinks twice about killing. Not allowing any exceptions is crucial to this. And then he talks about how it's the Vikings' obligation to avenge. And so he's seeing a future for this child that directly reflects the future that he had.
Yeah.
or rather the past that he had, and lamenting that this is the way of things and that this is the straight line direction that he's destined toward. And Gerded telling him, well, so we'll raise him different, we'll find a new future for him. And yeah, it's just another illustration of the chains, of the expectations, of the roles thrust on people, and how these are not always the ones that bring life.
Yeah, beautifully said. And you have Thorfinn's dream there, which is wrapped up in his desire to take pity, to help this helpless child. And it's amazing. You don't get a ton of Einar moments in this particular book, but there's one really good one where
good.
Yeah, where he says, remember that I know who you are. I know who you are. So no matter what, if your past catches up to you, and this is definitely a foreshadowing of what's going to happen, but if your past catches up to you and people think you're some kind of killer or murderer, I know what's in you. And I believe in you, because Thorfinn can't do this alone. He needs Einar. He needs these people around him. And it turns out later that, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but some of the people that he's hurt in the past, he's going to need them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that is one, everybody needs an Einar in their life, right? Somebody who says, I've seen the worst of you, but I know you, regardless of what someone else wants to say. But two, it speaks a lot to his own personal character growth as well. We met him having been sold into slavery, having seen firsthand the chaos and destruction of war, and hating warriors. And he hated warriors and hated what they do, and then found a warrior to be his best friend and to forgive. And then seeing now being the one to say, I know the worst of you, and I've been directly affected by people like you, but it's a clean slate with me, buddy. That's really powerful in and of itself.
It is indeed. It really is. Yeah. I mean, I love the relationship that has, been carried over from the previous arc to this one. And I feel like Einar is going to have some really important things to do in the future. But that was a great moment from him. So the last thing I think we need to talk about is the introduction of Hild. Near the end of this book. And, she's a really interesting figure. And when you meet her, she has this side of her face that has been scarred. Reminds me a little bit, I don't know if this is where he was going with this, but there is in Norse mythology, Hell is both a place where you go when you die if you don't die as a warrior, but it's also a goddess who is half, a woman on one side and half corpse on the other side.
Interesting.
And it's almost like Hild, whose name means battle, essentially, is a reflection of Hel, the goddess. In a way, with that appearance makes her initially a bit like resonant in a way of that particular goddess. And her kind of stoicness too. I think she's a fierce character when you meet her.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting, because Hild is the physical catching up with the internal, right? So internally, he's worked through his past demons, his past acts, and what's been dragging him down. And we had that whole visual of those corpses clinging to him and him trying to climb out of the pit, essentially him escaping hell. And then here's Hild, and that representation really amplifies that, doesn't it? That she is hell catching up to him physically now, that he's escaped it metaphorically. Shoo, that's strong.
That's good stuff. It really is. And the other thing that we just get in this encounter is the killing of the bear, which I thought was really interesting, because he's going to do stuff with bears in the next book as well, with a certain character that we all know and kind of love, I guess. But yeah, the idea of the connection with the animal, and this is an interesting relationship, because it is one of antagonism, but it is also one of respect. The idea of the hunter and the hunted is something that is being introduced at the very end of this book, and it's going to pick up a lot in the next. So we could save, I think, that discussion for.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else you wanted to touch on from book 8, Merphy?
I'm curious. You know how strongly I feel about Gerded. I'm curious what are your first impressions of her? Do you like her?
I do. I really, I love her. The fact that she's so full of life, and
Mhm.
that she is, it's not something that where she's just consciously rebellious. It's just not in her to be what everyone expects her to be. That's
Yeah.
not who she is. And she's gonna put in this corner where she gets out of it, right? Which
Mhm.
is, I think, very admirable. I think the two alternatives would be for her to run away or for her to be crushed forever. Uh,
Mm.
and I'm happy to see her running away and
Yes.
finding a family. The found family theme in here is wonderful too. You've
It
got this
is.
band of misfits coming together,
Yeah,
former
you're
slaves
right.
and runaway brides and explorers and such. So
Mhm.
I love her place in this family now,
Mhm.
and where I'm seeing her, and I love how vivacious she is, and I love her spirit. So I'm interested to see what she does with that, because of course the Saga character that you know very well is pretty flat. You don't really get
Sure.
a lot of Gudrun's desire, her will.
Mhm.
She basically handed off,
Yeah.
from one man to the next until
Mhm.
she marries Thorfinn in the
Mhm.
saga. But we don't really get a lot of her inner desires, her voice, or anything.
Yeah.
So
And
this
we
is wonderful.
definitely do get that passing off, that she was
Yeah.
originally the husband of someone that was, Leif's brother, I think it was.
Leif's brother, yeah, Thorvald. Yeah,
Yeah. And now she's been handed off and married again. And,
yeah,
we'll see what her fate is in the manga.
yeah. Because in the sagas, her husbands die, of
Hmm.
disease, essentially. So in this case, well, Thorvald is shot, as it says here. During the expedition to Vinland, he's
Right.
shot, and that's an
Right.
interesting moment in the saga where he's shot with the arrow, and he pulls it out and he looks at it, and there's some of his own, like, I guess, fat on the
Yeah.
arrowhead, and he's like, oh well, I guess I'm getting a little fat, and then he just, like, dies. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, well, this has been great.
Yes.
Another wonderful discussion, and I'm very excited to talk with you about book 9, which is going to be on your channel, Merphy Napier Vlogs.
Yes.
So that's this is going to be out on a Thursday. That's probably going to be out in a few days
Tuesday. Yep.
on a Tuesday. So everyone look out for that. And well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Merphy, for another wonderful chat.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.